call on Pastor Josh Benner of Cornerstone Evangelical Free Church to lead us in our invocation.
Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many blessings that you've given to us. I pray for this meeting. I pray that we can approach you with humble hearts. I pray for those who are leading in our community. And you bless this time this evening, Lord. We consecrate it to you and dedicate it to you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's 5:30 on March 20th, 2017, and we'll call this meeting of the Fergus Falls City Council to order. Roll call, please.
Here.
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 Here. We have a quorum. We have a full house here tonight, so there must be something going on.
Somebody's retiring.
First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is there any additions or corrections to the agenda? If not, I will just give a real brief committee of the whole recap. All three of the items we talked about at the committee of the whole: the golf course, line of credit, the land sale for a property abutting D'Amica Drive, and then the letter of intent for the regional treatment center Kirkbride campus are all on the agenda, so we'll get to those on the appropriate places on the agenda. So if there are no additions to the agenda, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second, Your Honor.
Second. Justin, thank you. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. There are no public hearings this evening, and we have no bids to award. Under petitions and communication, we will need a resolution acknowledging the retirement of Fire Chief Mark Sparky Hovland.
I'd like to make that.
Anthony?
Your Honor.
Second, Scott, thank you. I'm going to read resolution, retirement of Mark Hovland. Whereas Sparky Hovland has submitted his intent to retire effective March 31st, 2017, and whereas Mark began his employment with the city of Fergus Falls on March 3rd, 1980, as an on-call firefighter and lived at the fire hall for the first 8 years of his career, and whereas he moved into the position of fire safety inspector on February 12, 1991, and whereas on May 10, 1993, Mark continued working as the fire safety inspector and he was elected deputy chief, and whereas on June 1st, 2005, Mark became the fire chief, a position which he has remained until the present time. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Fergus Falls, Minnesota, to regretfully accept Mark Hovland's resignation and thank him for his 37 years of dedicated service to the City of Fergus Falls. Thank you, Mark. Roll call.
Rachel.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes.
Ferguson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Speedo.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Effort.
Yes. Resolution is approved. Now I'd like to call on George Esbenson, who is the fire chief of Eden Prairie, and he's also the president of the Minnesota Fire Chiefs Association, for a Minnesota State Fire Chiefs President Award.
Thank you, Your Honor, and council members and all other gathered here. I'm here, yes, representing the Minnesota State Fire Chiefs Association, and here to pay tribute, really an honor to Mark Hovland. Mark and I actually met back in 2002. I was up here for a class, and Mark dropped in on it, and as the usual graceful guy that he is and full of hospitality, welcomed me to the chief's ranks and to this emergency management class I was taking up here. Just a brief listing of the accomplishments for Mark as seen by the State Fire Chiefs Association. He was the Northwest Region 4 Secretary for many years, and he was also one who formally helped create the Otter Tail County Fire Chiefs Association. So always willing to give of his time and always has a vision for kind of what's coming next. He was the Northwest Regional Rep from 1999 to 2015, and if you've ever been in a room with a bunch of crabby fire chiefs late at night, you'll know that Mark stepping up to that role was very much a selfless act. A member of the State Fire Chiefs Association since 1993, so 24 more years of meetings and kind of debating the issues. An executive committee member of our board, which was kind of the policy-making decision part of the State Chiefs Association from 2012 to 2015. And last but not least in any way, in about 2008 or 9, Mark started talking about this idea he had, which was to create a fire officer school for kind of the up-and-coming, the next generation of fire service leaders. And I was on the board at that time as well, and there was a lot of debate, and you're trying to get a board of whatever we had back then, like 31 board members or something, to all kind of be moving in the same directions, a little bit like herding cats. But you know, Mark has the perfect personality for that. He's very calm, very measured, really understands group dynamics, and he kept pushing and pounding on this thing. And finally, in 2010, it became a reality. Our first fire officer school, which is down in Alexandria, and typical of Mark, he took it all on himself. He became the chair of that committee and had the vision. And since then, in the last 7 years that we've been running that fire officer school, something like 1,400 new up-and-coming fire officers have come through that school, been provided with the great education that's available at a very affordable rate. And just as importantly, this very family-centric idea, which I know is also in Mark's history and he's well known for. So this is held at a water park. Up-and-coming fire officers are encouraged to bring their young families with, and when you go there, the whole place kind of smells like chlorine, and there's lots of little kids running around, and every meal is a giant kind of big picnic, and it's just a great tribute, and I think really exemplifies everything that Mark represents in the Minnesota State Fire Chiefs Association. And we're going to miss him deeply, and I'm here to present the President's Award for Mark for his service to the Minnesota State Fire Chiefs. And I'll just step over here and get it. Maybe, Mark, you can come up. So on behalf of the Minnesota State Fire Chiefs Association, to Mark Sparky Hovland for shaping the MSSEA Fire Officer School. Thank you, George.
So my speech will only last about 45 minutes. First off, I didn't know the guys knew about this, so this surprises me. I knew I was getting the award, but I didn't know the guys in blue would be here, so it kind of chokes me up. But I want to thank George for making a trip all the way up from the cities to, make this presentation and spend 6 hours in a car. Thank you, George. And I guess I want to thank the council and the citizens for letting me be your fire chief. It's been an honor and privilege, and I've enjoyed it tremendously, but I know it's time to let the younger generation take over, and your newly elected chief will be starting next Monday. Ryan, he'll do a wonderful job for you. So, but with that, thanks again for your support, and it's been an honor. Thank you.
Sparky. You kept us safe, and you made us proud, so again, thank you very much, Sparky, for everything you've done for the community. There is no open forum this evening. Under the consent agenda, you have a copy of the consent agenda in your packets, and I believe that Lynn is putting a copy on the screen for the audience to see, and I believe that Peg Access can also see that. So is there any items on the consent agenda that anyone would like to discuss individually? If not, can we get a resolution approving the consent agenda?
Make that resolution.
Thank you, Brent.
Second?
Thank you, Tom. Roll call, please.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes.
Arneson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Speedo.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Becker.
The resolution is approved. Under ordinances and resolutions, item number 1, we will need a roll call of the second reading ordinance 43-7 series, which amends the legal description for the rezoning request. We've been over this a number of times. This should clarify and clean up the issue. Any questions? If not, roll call, please.
Rachel.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes.
Arneson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Speedo.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Becker.
Yes. Resolution is approved. Item number 2, we will need a resolution accepting the letter of intent for the Regional Treatment Center. Andrew, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, Your Honor, members of the council, I'll briefly recap for the people who weren't in attendance at our committee of the whole meeting, but the city of Fergus Falls did receive a letter of intent from local developer Mark Christofferson earlier last week. That was presented just briefly before this. And this letter of intent highlights a phased approach to redevelopment of the Kirkbride campus, breaking it out into 3 phases. There's also a map that you all have that accompanies these building numbers, but Phase 1 is Building 1, which is the tower, Building 2, which is that new addition in front of the tower, Building 3, 11, and 52. Phase 2 are Buildings 22, 25, 26, 29, which is working its way out from that core of the tower. And then Phase 3 would be Buildings 24 and 28, which are even further out along those wings of the property. There were 4 buildings identified that would not be of interest to this developer. Those would be east and west attached, which are identified as buildings 23 and 27, and then also buildings 30 and 32, 30 being the new power plant, 32 being the shop area, laundry, etc. The letter of intent has 2 different dates that are important to us. The first being May 22nd as the deadline for the developer group to identify their investors and finances, which would allow the city to do a financial due diligence on the investment group to understand if they have the ability and wherewithal to do the project identified. Then the second important date is about 120 days from now, July 17th of 2017, and that is the date that's been identified within the letter of intent as the deadline to negotiate developers agreement and essentially get all of our questions answered and wrap everything up. So quick timeline, but one that's important to keep moving so we can be done in time for, or have an understanding in time for our bonding request later on moving into 2018. The way this letter of intent is proposed to us tonight grants exclusivity to this developer if you are to approve the agreement, and that exclusivity would begin right away. The developer has expressed an interest in exclusivity so they can begin working with securing their investors or other parties that have expressed interest in the past that have potentially walked away because the city wasn't ready to entertain it at that time. So, be glad to answer any questions that anybody has, but that's just a real brief summary of the phased development approach that has been identified by the local developer.
I'd like to offer that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Rod. Scott?
Second.
Is there any questions of Andrew or any further discussion on this?
Your Honor, if I just asked to Mr. Hicks brought up during the meeting about that, I mean, I know we're talking about 2 different tracks and then working simultaneously, cohesively. Do we want to entertain having kind of milestone check marks or how that would work in this on track A, if you will, or do we feel we don't? need that in this, I mean, as far as those listed criteria of that, the 1 through 12?
Your Honor. Members of the council, we'd be glad to provide some updates as we go, just to ensure that there's some progress being made, but I would be uncomfortable adding checkpoints to this at this point without having that conversation with the developer to see what that looks like for him. And I think the 60 and 120 day deadlines are pretty good checkpoints because those dates are gonna come and go pretty quick. So I think with regular updates from staff that's working with the development group, I think, in my opinion, that'd be adequate, but if you're looking for more, we could discuss that as well.
I think if we can get staff's assurance that we're going to get that feedback, you know, then I think we're good to go.
Well, we're still gonna have that track meet. I'll just say what I said at the earlier meeting, just briefly. I'm very excited about this letter of intent. We've been working on this for a long time. There's a lot of work that will still need to be done on this. I think we all need to keep that in mind. But it is a local group, it's a local developer group that has an interest in this community. It's a phased development. I think it's realistic. I hope that phase 2 and 3, as we go through this process, are wildly successful. But I think the important thing is that we get something started. And however small it is, we get something started up there. And I think that's the key to us as a group, getting as much developed up there as possible. And I think that this is a start. And I'm very excited and I'm thankful to the local developer for stepping up to the plate and putting their time and efforts into this, and look forward to staff working with them and having a successful project. So this is the first start. Rod?
Yeah, just to comment, I'd agree with that, Your Honor. And, you know, we all come from different backgrounds and environments, and I think people should understand that the raising of questions never constitutes that you're against something. It's simply the role, I think, and how we interpret our roles as council members to make sure that we are representing the city, the taxpayers, and everyone involved. And I wholeheartedly support the efforts that we're trying to do here, and so I'm excited as well. I think all the council members are.
I appreciate that, Rod. I think that's well said. Any other, Darren?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate track A and track B again, to make sure that staying aligned and staying on top of those numbers in his part of his packet, so I'm all for it.
Did you, just so I'm clear, did you want to talk about
No,
that track? You just want to make sure that we are going down
Yeah.
parallel tracks? That if this doesn't come to fruition, that we're not sitting there
Starting over.
starting from scratch. I think that's important. Any other comments, questions? If not, roll call, please.
Rachel.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes.
Armisen.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Cheeto.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Packard.
Yes.
The resolution is approved unanimously. Item number 3 is a sale of real estate. And we will need, Guy's gonna address this, but if we, depending on the discussion, we'll need a resolution introducing the sale of real estate. Guy, do you want to speak to this?
What's that?
No, this fees. It's connected.
Yeah, just briefly to recap from the committee meeting, a citizen approached the city wondering if we would be interested in selling a piece of land at the end of D'Amica Drive. It's currently part of parkland. The city attorney had advised me that the city could sell it to adjacent property owner, sell it to the public, or just simply not sell it. The staff has reviewed it, and just a cursory look, we would be open to selling it. We've been maintaining it, so it would just be a parcel that we would no longer be responsible for. So just like to request that we be authorized to seek an appraisal and a survey and enter into negotiations with this prospective buyer.
Thank you, Guy. I would just add, from my perspective, this property obviously is currently not generating tax dollars,
Correct.
which it would if it was sold and developed. Second of all, as far as the general public, it doesn't have any value to the general public in the sense that it doesn't have access unless it's to the adjacent lot. Is that correct?
Right.
So it really has value to one property owner, and that's the adjacent lot.
Correct.
And finally, I think Rod made this point earlier, it's never, even though it's considered part of the old Smoky property, it's not a part of that property. So it really doesn't have any value,
The usage, yeah, the usage of it.
usage or value to the city other than practicing our lawn mowing skills. So, and we do have lots of area to practice.
Yeah, exactly.
Proficient at it, right?
We're very good at that.
There's some things that would have to be addressed. There is a water main that runs through there, so we'd have to continue the easement that's already in place, but that would all be addressed.
Any questions for Guy?
I'll offer, Your Honor.
Scott, thank you.
I'll second your
Second, Karen? Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Rachel's.
Yes.
Grufer.
Yes.
Ferguson. Thompson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Pepper.
Yes.
Just for clarification, we will have to come back with this issue. We'll come back probably with a proposed purchase agreement for you to consider, but at least you've introduced the prospective sales. Sell it at a later date. Our charter requires that we wait 2 council sessions at least to sell real estate.
Thank you, Rolf. Resolution is approved. Item number 4. Guy is going to talk to us about dumpster enclosures.
Sanitation staff had come to me a few months ago after a death had occurred of a sanitation worker over in the Wahpeton Breckenridge area. A dumpster had come loose from the truck, and the worker didn't have the means to safely get away from the dumpster that was falling, and he was crushed. So in looking at the issue in some of the dumpster enclosures in the city, felt it was time that we address that. And looking around at different ordinances in the area, I found the city of Moorhead's was very comprehensive, and I've patterned what was in the packet after Moorhead's ordinance. And that's not it on the screen there, but if you have that one, the little, okay. All right, so it was in the packet, but it just details a turning radius that would be required. This isn't mandating an enclosure for all businesses. It's just those businesses that do want to build an enclosure, this is the guidelines that they would have to go by.
They're still allowed to, they just have to meet certain guidelines.
Correct, yep. So it's just actually revamping to or adding to a resolution that was adopted back in '99, I believe. It was a pretty basic piece of this, so we've added to it some of the features that Moorhead had in theirs that we didn't, is 3-foot spacing on all sides of the dumpster, a mechanical latching open of the gate so that there's no damage to the gate hitting the truck or being snagged by the truck as it pulls away. I would request that this wouldn't be just for new enclosures, that we would make it comprehensive for all enclosures that are out there and give existing ones that are out there a certain amount of time to comply with the new standards that are set forth.
Guys, the biggest concern that I think is this distance on the side of, the size of the enclosure, basically?
The sides and the rear, yep. They've got to get behind the dumpster in order to hook the cable up to the dumpster.
Oh.
So it's, yeah, access on all sides of container.
Any questions of Guy? So this would be a resolution
Just a motion directing me to work with,
on redrafting.
on redrafting our
Yeah.
ordinance to permit this.
Someone offer that motion?
I will.
Thank you, Rod. Second. Brent, any other discussion?
And one question.
Yes, go ahead.
And this may be totally different, but in terms of recycling and, when we do single sort, we go to the different containers we're using. Will there be places where there will be dumpsters similarly designated as a recycling dumpster, single sort?
The single sort program is basically residential.
Mhm.
So if, and that's the document on the
We
screen.
recycle a lot at our house. I was wondering if I could maybe get a dumpster.
Yeah. Should we segue into this one then? Or you got to vote?
Yes. Well, we have a motion.
Yeah.
Ben's perfectly fine, Jason.
These container enclosures, how many of those, so do we have a lot of those in town where this is gonna apply to? Are most of ours out in the open, or is that
There-
pertaining to?
I don't know a number for sure how many it will apply to,
There are a
but
lot.
there are quite a few.
Okay.
I can think of a half dozen that the guys have told me right now are very much in need of some work, yeah.
So this will affect some, but not the majority of?
No.
Okay. Thanks, guy.
Just to follow up.
Yes,
quickly on it, at the fairgrounds, we currently don't have, I believe, a recycling program there when we have the fair. And I've seen that in action at Detroit Lakes, and I'm wondering if in the future we might extend that recycling. And this is not relating to your dumpster enclosure direct, so maybe just take it off. We'll talk to you later.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Yes.
I wonder, obviously, on the one hand, there's going to be a financial burden to people that already have an enclosure. You know, have we kind of talked to any of these people to forewarn them that this is kind of coming down the pike?
The businesses that we really have an issue with, yeah, we have been trying to work with them, and some have made some good adjustments to their enclosures. Yeah, we haven't talked to them that this is actually going to come down as a mandate, though.
Right, and then my next question was kind of probably what Gordon's going to answer is, can we through
Amy and I were
on
whispering
the
back
loan
and forth.
program to,
We have that downtown program, which has a facade aspect of it.
could we
and
incorporate that?
Yeah, I would propose
Yeah.
that to the,
So that, you know, we don't,
yeah.
you know, I mean, we don't want to impose an unnecessary burden as much as anything, as we don't have to.
We'd include it, or propose it to them for inclusion under the facade program.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gordon. Any other questions of Guy?
No.
If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. And you did have another,
Yeah, the one
Item
that's
related to
up on the screen is in digging through Moorhead's ordinance. I just found an ordinance they have in their code for recyclable material. So I'm just proposing that we include a chapter in our code regarding recyclable materials, and it wouldn't change anything of our program. It would just put in the books what's required and what's acceptable. So,
you mean this for just recycling in general, what can be recycled and
yep, and what container is acceptable to use.
does this have anything to do with the single sort, or is this just,
No, just the recycling in general.
okay? Question, I did hear you say that the single sort's gonna be residential only? Or
Mainly,
mainly?
yeah. We're gonna hopefully be able to work with some businesses that,
We'll
so
still
we,
have a chance to recycle, it's just,
oh, yeah,
but there'll be the old truck or, anyway, you'll work through it, but they will have a chance to recycle.
Yep.
Just might not be single sort for all of them
right.
on that scale. Okay. Any questions for Guy relating to the recycling?
So you need a motion on that, or?
Yes, we need a motion.
I'll make that motion, Your Honor.
Thanks, Justin.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Anthony. Any other questions? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Guy. Under presentation of claims, tonight we have claims in the amount of $1,901,717.92, and we will need a resolution to pay those bills. Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Tom. Any questions, we'll direct them to Bill Sonmore, our Finance Director. If not, roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Thompson.
Yes.
Speedo.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Meffert.
Yes. Resolution is approved. There are no board, committee, or department reports that I'm aware of. Under reports from staff and administrative officers, we'll have a discussion on the line of credit from the golf course. Bill, do you want to start us off, that discussion?
Thank you, Your Honor. We talked about this a little bit at our committee meeting, Committee of the Whole before this meeting, but I'll just briefly summarize again where we're at today and bring this to you for your consideration. We currently have a line of credit. It was a $300,000 line of credit with Pebble Lake Golf Club, And that started back in 2010 as an $80,000 line of credit, was moved to $150,000 in October of 2010, and then to $300,000 in November of 2012. Throughout that period, over that time, the Golf Board was making some payments back to the city on that, to the amount of $125,000 over that time period. The line of credit was then advanced again, so it's at the $300,000 mark plus interest. It's has 3% interest is what accumulates on that on an annual basis. Now, the last payment was made in March of 2013, and in discussions with our auditors, our audit actually started this week, and I discussed this with them last week, kind of as I'm preparing our financial statements, as far as should this line of credit stay on our financial statements, because it appears to be an uncollectible receivable. So we really shouldn't have an uncollectible receivable on our financial statements. So I bring that forward to you tonight, that I think we should probably write this receivable off because of it doesn't appear to be collectible. Now, this does not preclude you from still collecting it in the future if you see that the financial wherewithal of the golf course were to even improve more than it has over the last years, and if there were funds to repay this, you could still look at requesting some payments to be made on that. But that's my request tonight. From an accounting standpoint, I kind of think I need to be writing this off the books so that we're presenting our financial statements fairly. It's a tough topic. It's a tough issue to deal with, but I felt the need to bring that before you tonight. So.
What does the council think?
Your Honor, I guess we talked about this earlier, and would have to agree to somewhat with what Anthony was saying at that meeting, that we probably go along the line of writing it off, and it was suggested that there's a means of possibly going to the golf course and the club and asking them for some documents that would say it's just not disappearing altogether, but that an acknowledgement that this does exist, and form it up that way.
Scott?
And we talked a little bit earlier about this, and that's what we do at the next meeting. We'd talk about what, it wouldn't be a forgiveness of loan, it would be just writing it off on our books, but it would still be on the books of, I guess you'd call it on the books of the golf course. But it would not be it'd be just gone off our books for accountability, but we'd still make accountability to the golf course if it come down to the point that we needed to get money from them. For maybe a 5 or 6, 7 year deal or something, we'd leave it up in our records.
If I may. So we talked a little bit about that. Perhaps what I could do is provide Scott with a letter kind of setting forth some of the suggestions as to the golf course recognizing this debt, continuing to recognize this debt. Although from an accounting perspective, Bill would like to just simply take it off the books because from an auditor's perspective, it just needs to be addressed from an accounting perspective, but the legal obligation is still there. Right. So what I envision is providing Scott with a letter that kind of sets forth some suggestions to the golf board to start talking about recognizing that legal obligation, perhaps with a document entitled like a confession of judgment, and we just simply hold on to it for a period of time, or something along those lines. But at least addressing the issue further with the golf board recognizing that it continues to be obligated for that loan, and what the council does with it in the future is completely up to the council, but for now at least you're addressing it in some fashion.
Clarifications on the line of credit. There's some confusion in the discussion we had at the committee of the whole. Does there remain a line of credit for the golf course after this action?
I would say no, there does not. Okay. So you could have that in your motion though as well.
Well, I would like to include that in the motion.
I would second that. Certainly indicate that the line of credit is extinguished. I mean, that certainly would be appropriate. But I do believe that the line of credit also requires further council approval for extending additional lines of credit. So it still would have to be clear. Yeah. Just to be clear that it's that the line of credit agreement is no longer effective.
So we have a motion and a second.
Yep. One more thing, I do like this last line in this recommendation too. If the financial operations of Pebble Lake Golf Club reach a level enabling payments to be made to the city council could still request future payments.
Yes. One thing, Ben, back in 2013, we kind of stepped in, as Bill and myself and Mark Siebert stepped in, and we kind of helped them out, got this budget going, and started turning that whole scenario around. And since then, it's been an upswing, and so, and we told them at that time there will be no more line of credit from the council, and that's from that council, and I don't think I'd be in favor of getting it again. So, since then, though, there is not one person left on that board that was involved in that money. So they're sitting here, but they had nothing to do with it. So, and they're still responsible for it, but there's nobody we can really talk to that did it. So,
Your Honor, if I could just add, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding of that line of credit wasn't all negligence or mismanagement. They had put in a brand new sprinkler system, and a lot of
That was separate. This irrigation.
300.
Yeah, we dealt with that a couple of years ago.
Is that the one that the
We're
liquor
paid for
stores-
with the liquor store,
Okay.
yep.
So this is the other one.
And of course, keeping in mind the irrigation system that is in the ground, and of course, that is all property of the city of Fergus Falls, so that's fixed assets that we actually have on the books of the city now, too.
Okay. Thanks, Bill.
Question?
Yes,
I was just calling for the question.
Just gonna give Matt, anyone care to add anything? You good? No, I think. All right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Thank you.
this resolution,
Yeah.
we got
All right,
Oh, yep.
resolution, roll call.
Rachel.
Yes.
Rupert.
Yes.
Arneson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Spiegel.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Pafford.
Yes.
Resolution is approved. Thank you. Next, Amy Baldwin will give us a downtown and riverfront master plan update.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, council members. The big event coming up is the next community open house, which is Wednesday, March 29th, here in the city council chambers from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And I do want to emphasize that it's an open house, and so there is not a single point of that there'll be a presentation or anything. We expect and we hope for a large number of people to attend. So, coming maybe not right at 5:30 would be give you even more of an opportunity to interact with project team members and other community members. We had a great turnout in January of around 100 individuals, and it was full. It was a full house, which is what we hope for. But again, just wanted to emphasize that it is an open house, and so people can come anytime between 5:30 and 7:30 to provide their input on some concepts that the consultants have put together based on input from that January open house, from the Community Advisory Committee, from various stakeholder listening sessions that were held over the last couple months, and again have developed those concepts that look at areas of public improvements, potential redevelopment sites, and ways to create better access and connections to the river. So there'll be a lot of great ideas that have been brought together and put out into something that's visual for folks who like that visual piece. And we'll want to get people's responses for a number of the sites. There'll be various concepts, so we want people to gauge, what feels better, what seems to make more sense for some of those key opportunity sites. And really just come and learn more about the process and the project. There'll be additional opportunities for input. This is a process going through the end of 2017, so this isn't the last point of input, so also to emphasize that. As we look ahead at those next steps, we do anticipate holding a joint planning commission and city council meeting coming up here in the next month or so. We'll get that date squared away. It would be held at the planning commission. That's the intent right now, with the city council invited to that meeting, so that both bodies can be brought up to speed and see where we're at following this next open house process. So that will be coming down the road, and then what we're working on is the developers roundtable, now that we will have some concepts for them to respond to and get the development community's reaction to what's being proposed as well. So that'll be coming up likely in the same time period as that joint city planning commission city council meeting. So we're just working to get a hold of some of the key players around that to make sure that that date would work for some of the players we know we want to introduce these concepts to, and hopefully start generating development interest as we move forward. And and bring that. So those are our next big steps that we'll be looking at. Also looking at an online portal to get feedback throughout process that won't be launched until after the open house. We want the open house to be that first point of people reaching out, but then following that, we'll have some online feedback opportunities, and then really start getting into a draft of that plan that'll be worked on for the next 6 to 8 months. So again, another point of for an open house later this summer, and additional feedback with the Planning Commission, City Council, and that Community Advisory Committee will continue to meet. So happy to answer any questions about where we're at with that process.
Thank you, Amy. Does anyone have questions for Amy about that process?
Good. Hope to see you all next week.
March 29th. Thank you. Don't believe there's any old or unfinished business. Under new business, I guess I just think we ought to offer a resolution to offering our good luck to the Otters boys basketball team in state.
Here, here.
Is there someone who would offer that resolution? Rod?
Yep.
Justin? Roll call, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Waters.
Win Otters.
Yes.
Yes.
Amy mentioned the March 29th Riverfront Master Plan Open House. Next Committee of the Whole meeting is at 4:30 on April 3rd, followed by the City Council meeting at 5:30. Is there anything else to come before the council? If not, we're adjourned.